And hello, welcome back to AskTechDad. I'm Brian.
And I'm John, as always.
and and my daughter got hacked, y'all.
Yeah, we got a special podcast coming to you guys. And, there's a lot of good information here, but we're just going to sum it up. Brian's daughter got hacked.
So, like to come on these and give stuff that has happened in our daily life, and show everybody not that we're perfect for sure, and stuff happens to us, but just want to walk you guys through a story of what happened. And I want to give a shout out to my beautiful and crazy intelligent daughter. This can really happen to anybody, so Layla, I'm not throwing shade at you, honey. This is definitely something that everybody is working through right now. And I really wanted to share this, not necessarily to show that Layla got hacked, but I really want to go through the steps with how it happened, what happened from it, how she was vulnerable, and what we did to stop that.
So I guess that's the best way to go right into it. Layla got hacked. Let's start at the beginning. How did Layla get hacked? What exactly did she do that would enable anybody to have access to her machine? Did she call up and answer and give them all the information? Did she install something? What really happened here? What was the attack vector?
The attack vector was very simple. This happened on her phone, and she was at school, bored, and she was on Instagram. And her Instagram account was the thing that got hacked. And it was a simple message that was sent to her by someone that she knew. And she clicked on the link, and that's all it took.
Wow. So, a couple things. There's a whole bunch of information in there, but the important one I think that stands out to me is it was on her phone.
Yep.
78% of people are using the internet on their phone. They're on their phones constantly. So it is a major avenue for attack. And, so was this in an email, a message? It was kind of like a phishing attempt?
This was a message. This was a direct message from someone that she knew, and it was a weaponized link that took over her username and password on her account, acted as her, and then sent that same message out to all of her friends, and ended up that her brother got hacked from this as well. So
I just got spread the cooties to her brother.
I
gotcha.
Layla cooties.
she got them internet cooties.
Yeah, we got the internet cooties. And the interesting thing is that when this happened, her friends, most all of them knew that she had been hacked, because obviously they had seen this before, or they had been hacked themselves. So this is going around.
So it's a lot of awareness there. But I mean, it goes to show that usually we've all had a friend and we start receiving some pretty weird messages. And did they reach out to her? Did they say, hey, Layla, you're being hacked?
No, nobody reached out to her. It was just this message that was sent to her phone that said, hey, I worked on this for a couple of hours. And then it was a message with a link to a website that had the bad code, that when you clicked on it, it ran the code and then took you back to Instagram. So now, it looked like the link didn't work at all because it took you back to Instagram, but when really in the background, it got all the information that it needed.
So what kind of phone did she have?
She has an iPhone. She has one of my later iPhones. It's completely up to date, and all of the security settings were set on her iPhone. However, they were not set up in her Instagram correctly.
I see. And, by the way, that is the most common way that we're going to get hacked is us. We're doing it. You can set up a computer to have all these settings and additional protection. But when you're clicking the link, you're doing it as the admin authority. You are the main user of that device. And you're basically saying, yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna open the door for this guy.
Mm-hmm. And it's typically through systems that have some kind of username and password, and the authentication, the personal authentication or two-factor authentication is not set up on. So they do not have to go past another step in order to get access to your account. And that's something that she did not have set up on her account. And then let me give you kind of the picture of this. It's 3 o'clock. She's waiting for her bus. She's just hanging out and she's going through her Instagram. She gets this message from a buddy and it says, "Hey, I worked on this for a while." She trusted this person. She clicked on the link and she didn't know that it was actually a hack because it sent her right back to her Instagram. She didn't know it was a hack until she started getting her friends messaging her back.
So they did reach out and let her know.
They did.
Okay.
The friends reached out and let her know. Now, the person that sent this hack obviously did not know that it had been sent. This probably happened too quick for him. I believe it was a boy. And I'm sure he knows now because you messaged them back. And in this particular case, she didn't know what to do. So she called me immediately, which was good because we talked about this and it wasn't anything that she did wrong. This is absolutely something that was completely normal. It was completely normal for this boy to send, information out. It didn't look really weird.
Well, less is more.
Yeah.
So they are obviously,
it's very simple.
It proliferates, it grabs a hold of those accounts and immediately sends out again. And it's a very simple message. Just mysterious and enticing enough. Hey, a friend of mine's really worked on something. I better check out what it is.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was I stopped and I messaged her to change her password. That was the first thing that I made sure that we did. And then I waited until she got home. So password is changed. They don't have access to the account anymore. That's the most important step. Once she got home, I was able to look at all of those security settings and I made a few changes. The first thing that I made a change for was the backup email address. I changed it from her email address to my email address so I would get notifications if there was a password change or an awkward login or something like that.
The buddy system.
That's right. Having somebody else to check and balance is never a bad thing, whether you're dealing with your kids or dealing with work or whatever that is.
But even more so, if they compromised her account and used it to pivot into other accounts and profiles, for instance, if you get somebody's email and then you use that email to reset passwords to other accounts.
Yes.
Having somebody outside of that can help you reset could be very useful, because you can end up getting locked out of everything. And then the email account you'd use to reset your password is now compromised as well. And it's like trying to fit all of these links back together. I mean, so you put out the fire, you got the password change.
Yep.
And then you reviewed the damage.
Here's something that I think people ignore in the security realm. There's a balance between usability and security. If it's too secure, nobody can use it.
Yeah, convenience and security.
That's right. So there has to be a balance of that. So even though if she were to get an email that has a code in it and it comes to my phone and she has to wait on that code, that's inconvenient for her. However, it's more secure for her. And sometimes we want to err on the side of security. So you don't necessarily have to have someone else be your monitor, but you can definitely have an account that you only use for security questions. So you log in just to that account for security questions and nothing else. So it's not your main account. That's very helpful sometimes. But I definitely want to point that out, that a lot of people ignore the security for convenience. It's easy to not put a password on. It's easy to not put a difficult password in. And that's some of the training that I went through with her after this happened. So of course, got home, and here's a couple of steps that we took. We made sure that we reset her password again, but we did it and we made a secure password out of it. And this for you guys is a great way to make a secure password. The first thing you do is you have a password that you always remember, and that can be anything that you want it to be. But this is the thing that you type in every single time. And I like to use numbers for...
Yes, tell us your password.
Numbers for vowels, right? So Brian might be BR14N, and then I'll put a special character. after
I
that.
wrote it down.
So that would be the password that I always use. And then I use what's called a site key. And that site key is a secondary password that has to do with whatever you're dealing with at the time. So we have a password that we normally use. And then if we're dealing with the bank, it might be B4NK that's right behind that. So the complication of your main password and your secondary password together makes the password long, it makes it complex, and it definitely makes it harder for a computer to figure that out. And it also makes it unique because you use different passwords for every single login that you
Which
have.
is an important thing, because if your one password gets compromised, now they have a way in. And you're kind of using the same password, but you're doing it in a manner that you would remember and recall with the site
That's right.
code and combining. I use the Little Red Riding Hood method. So, Little Red Riding Hood, I usually create some descriptors to whatever I wanted. So I might pick a color, a size, and kind of make it bigger that way. So, if my dog was Old Yeller, I'd put, Little Red Old Yeller or whatever I wanted.
Right,
And
right.
it would basically kind of blow that up a little bit more. Obviously, you want to use special characters, capitalization. The longer your password is, the longer it's going to take for somebody to brute force it, which means to keep trying until they guess it. And that's a major one, because some sites restrict you. Hey, you get 3 attempts and I'm going to time you out. But some sites do not. And
Right.
you can sit there and just keep trying and trying. And if you have a dictionary attack, which is just a whole list of commonly used passwords, and you try them all, you may find that you can get access that way.
That's right. And there are a lot of standard passwords that people use that you can get off of someone's social media or anything like that. So, any references to your dogs, your pets,
Your children,
your children,
big
your
one.
dates of birth. So on Facebook it says happy birthday, right? So you got your date of birth out there for anybody to be able to take that. A lot of people are using password is not a good password.
Password.
Yeah.
Password is my password.
Right. Well, that's very common. Also, using character keys like QWERTY is a super common password. This just the top 5 of the keyboard. Using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's very common as well. So, any of those kinds of things you definitely want to stay away from when you're creating a password. And I find that having that single password you always use, and then plugging in that site key. There we go. Plugging in that site key makes that password much harder to hack and much easier to remember, which is the most important part, because we don't want to forget all of our passwords.
Well, worse, people will make a huge complex password, and what do they do with it? They write it down. They put it under their keyboard. They stick it in an easy to access Excel file, and you can grab those. A lot of people also store their passwords in a browser like Chrome. Just so you can export those passwords and they are not encrypted. So you could very easily, with access to somebody's browser, pull every password for every site that they have saved in there. So obviously, if you make it too difficult, it becomes inconvenient.
Right.
And for the convenience of remembering it, you have now duplicated it. You have kept a written record somewhere, which makes it less secure.
Right. It does make it less secure for sure. And any time that you're using the same password over and over on things, you definitely have that risk of attack. So that was the first thing that we talked about, was password security. So we came up with a great password based off of what she wants to do with her future. And then we came up with the site key for her social media, and she's going to have a different password for everyone. We talked about that, and it was great. The next thing that we did was we set up her 2-factor authentication.
So what's 2-factor? Tell us a little bit about.
So 2-factor authentication is you have to have 2 factors to be able to log into any device. And that would be, the first factor would be your password.
Something
so making sure that you have a secure password. And the second factor of that would be a code that is sent to something or a device that you own.
Something you have.
That's right. So we've all used banks in the past, and banks will typically, once you log into it, they will text you a code and you have to copy that code and paste it into their system to enter the portal. So that is called two-factor authentication. And all of the email companies out there right now use it. All the social media companies use it. Just about every cloud provider, if you've got Dropbox or any kind of file sharing or anywhere where you put important information, there is two-factor authentication. Microsoft for Microsoft logins has two-factor authentication. Apple for iCloud also has two-factor authentication. And you typically have to go to your account settings, and it will be in a security tab or security profile. And it will either be called one of two things. It'll be called two-factor authentication, or it'll be called multi-factor authentication.
MFA or 2FA.
Yes. And we set up two forms of two-factor authentication always when we do this. So we'll set up either a text or an email. You can also use what's called an authenticator app, which has an app that you install on your cell phone, and it will give you those codes randomly. So you always have those codes available to you to put into whatever system that you're trying to log into.
So even if I have your password, unless I also have access to your phone or device that you've set up the multi-factor on, it's useless to me.
That's right.
So it is an extra layer, and it is probably one of the strongest that we have. And I should put a little caveat on that be aware, don't ever give anybody your multi-factor code. You know, you could receive a scam text that's saying, hey, we sent a code to your phone, please give it to us. Yeah, don't do that.
I've got a great story about that in the future as well.
Sure.
I want to get on to step 3 though.
Yeah.
Step 3 is a little bit more advanced. It's called geofencing. And geofencing means that you block off login capabilities from other places in the world.
Brazil.
So you can turn off Brazil, you could turn off China, you could turn off India, you could turn off all of these places.
Russia's a bit.
You could turn off everywhere. So if you only log in from the United States, or you only log in from, this area in South Carolina, some of these companies actually have a way to allow you to not have anybody be able to access the account from overseas. And that is also in the security part of your account profile. So I would urge everyone to go in and make those settings for yourself, for your kids. And we did also, I had myself as the two-factor authentication email. However, I set her up as the two-factor authentication cell phone. So a cell phone message, like a text message, will go to her, so she can log in on whatever device she needs.
But if she lost her phone or didn't have access?
That's right. Now it goes to me, and I should be able to recover her account without having that phone or device, because she could have lost the device, could have fallen in the river, whatever.
For a price, of course.
Yes.
Chores
must Indeed. Be done. So, we had a great teachable moment out of a small hacking event on computer security, and I went over all the settings with her and spent some time with her, and we talked about all of that. And in the end, she was super grateful, gave me a big hug, and we went along. And a couple of things that I want to go over was, first of all, I wasn't mad at her. I didn't have that, what I call a knee-jerk reaction of just anger about, this happening to her, because quite frankly, it wasn't her fault.
It's like catching a cold, honestly. You probably wouldn't yell at the sick. I mean, these things can happen.
No, and I was very calm about how I handled this, and I wanted to make sure that she knew that it wasn't her fault.
But that she could trust you to bring these things. Yeah, that's super
right.
important.
That's right. So, how you handle it emotionally is just as important with children as how you handle it security wise, to make sure that you keep that bond that we all talk about with your kids, and make sure that they could trust you and bring anything that is up like that to you. So it worked out in the end. She's still got her Instagram, and she's still doing her post, and I didn't take anything away. It was definitely not a not an offense where, you got your stuff hacked, so now you're not going to have it anymore. It wasn't anything like that.
Right.
We just had a great teachable moment, some education on passwords and security. It also gave me a chance to look at her Instagram, which I did take the time to do because I wanted to see what kind of a friend was sending her information. And I wanted to see what other friends that she had and if she had any other suspicious friends. And I wanted to see who was messaging her, if there were any unknown followers that might be on her Instagram that were messaging her, and to see if really, really wasn't worried about her usage of Instagram. She's very good and she's very, smart about how to use Instagram,
Sure.
as we've gone over, some of these talks. But I really wanted to make sure that we had everything, just buttoned up.
It sounds like you were really thorough and you really have that rapport with your daughter to be able to discuss that. Things in hindsight, you don't have to get hacked to have these conversations with your kids. You
That's
can
right.
have them before and enable the 2-factor and set up secure passwords.
If I had
and
had the
discuss those things.
if I had had the preventative measures of going into her, I've checked her Instagram, a bunch, but I never went through security settings with her. I
Right.
just forgot.
Of course.
I just forgot. And that's definitely something that, shame on me, but it won't happen twice.
I don't think there's any shame. And I think
Well,
there's a lot to stay on top of, but it's
a
just,
lot.
you can hear one of these stories and think, I wonder what settings my kid has, or
Yeah.
what accounts, or what kind of passwords.
What settings do I
using.
have? It made me question myself. So, if I clicked on the link, would it have taken over, my Instagram? So that's definitely, something that I wanted to check on for myself and make sure that I was clear as well. Fortunately, I did have 2-factor set up for mine because I did test the link. I wanted to see where it went and what it actually did, because I thanked my daughter as soon as she told me that she got hacked for some podcast material.
All right. And here we are.
And
we
here we
get to
are.
keep saying his daughter got hacked. Layla was hacked. No, Layla, you're awesome. I want to say one other thing with this, and that it comes out with access to accounts, and that's security questions.
Yes.
Now, I don't love security questions. I feel most of the time they're very generic. They're easily guessed.
You talk about cold reading all the time. It's really easy to cold read somebody's security questions.
I mean, here's some basic ones. Like, what's your favorite superhero? Well, I mean, it doesn't take me many guesses to figure out, I might jump off a Superman or Batman, unless it's some obscure hero. Most people are not. That's not a great security question. Your mother's maiden name. That's information I could find out off of social media. We've talked about it before. Be wary that you're picking some harder, very specific questions when you're picking your security questions, because they do, the worst part about adding all the security to your accounts and these strong passwords and multi-factor is when you get locked out of them yourself. And now you're just struggling, 19 different ways to try to get back in and, remember or find the thing. And sometimes they'll ask you, what was the last password that you knew worked? I know Gmail, Google will do that.
Yeah, sure.
And it can be really frustrating. So, it's
I've
kind of
seen
like
people not get accounts back ever because they did not have the security questions, and they didn't have they couldn't remember the last password, or it didn't ask for the last password. I've seen people lose accounts forever.
Yeah, and it happens, and it's really bad. I know quite a few, even here recently, that a similar thing happened. There has to be a happy middle ground in there where you get it secure enough. Even if you're not being hacked, you're using good security procedures, good protocols as far as getting the multi-factor on there, setting it up in a way, but within your comfort level, that your convenience is there and you're not locking yourself out of everything. And that's something else, is if you go through with your kid and you lock all this stuff down and you had a nice conversation with them, and then the next day they forget and you don't remember, now you're back at square one. So just something to be aware of. I don't love security questions, but there are ways to reset your account. Just be thoughtful of it, of what would happen if you didn't have this information or you forgot. And I don't mean now, I mean 6 months from now. The biggest player in that is the auto login. So your devices are caching your password information, just like I was talking about a browser would, phone does. And different devices do different levels of security and encryption on that information. But it is super convenient because you can have a super hard password and it's just auto logging you in. And that's great.
Right.
But, a year later, do you even remember what that login was?
No, typically not. And one thing that I would recommend to people to do, these are kind of pro tips here for passwords and security questions. I am not a big fan of writing that stuff down, but I'm okay taking a picture of it and putting that picture in a place where it is. And another pro tip about if you are saving passwords in some kind of a spreadsheet or a book or things of that nature, then you definitely don't want to name the file passwords. In lots of different hacking attempts, we've actually seen people, bad actors, get into a network computer and find the passwords file because it was literally named passwords. So they just searched for passwords and found the passwords file, and it was right there. And that's another thing, is if you write passwords in an Excel spreadsheet or in a Word document, those are actually searchable. So these computers are not just searching for the computer names, they're also searching for the data in the files themselves. So that's a very easy way for a bad actor to find information if they get into your computer, if they get into an account. So I'm okay with taking pictures. So if you've got 5 security questions, 3 to 5 security questions, and you don't want to forget it, taking a picture of that and saving that somewhere where that's secure is not a bad idea. I mean, we have to balance the convenience of, hey, I can't just remember all of this stuff, with the security aspect of it. So those are a couple of pro tips there.
Yeah, it sounds like you really mined a lot of good data for the podcast from this experience. Thank you, Layla. Yay.
So one more story.
Yeah. What do you got?
One more story. Guys, if you ever get a phone call from your cell phone company and here's how it happens. I actually had a friend of mine that this happened to, got a call from Verizon, and quote Verizon, and Verizon came through a sales pitch, and this person got on the phone and said, hey, we've got some new deals for your account, and we wanted to talk with you about them. I need to be able to access your account. I'm going to send you a special code, and you get that code, give it to me, I'll be able to access your account, and then we could talk about these special deals. And my friend said, okay, no problem.
Yeah, sounded like I don't need your password, I just need you to read this code. Right. I'm gonna send.
That's right. I've got the information, I just need this code. So here's what happened, y'all. So he gave him the code. Within 3 minutes, his phone number had been ported to another device. And the attacker actually had his username and password from purchasing it off of the dark web, where he had, where some other company had been hacked, and he used the same username and password for his Verizon account. And then, so the bad actor called him up as Verizon and got that special code and moved his number from one phone to another. So the bad guy now has his 2-factor authentication because he was able to get the text messages to the phone number on his phone, and my buddy lost his phone number right there. Within 15 minutes, he had gone to his bank account and actually had withdrawn funds from my friend's bank account into some other bank account somewhere else because they had that 2-factor authentication. So
to recap here, he was able to find out what the multi-factor was by getting that code. He already had some other credentials. he was able to port the number. And because that device under that number was taking SMS for two-factor or whatever, he was now able to receive the multi-factor in efforts to reset other accounts, use the information. So in a sense, he virtually stole the guy's phone and then used that phone as something he had, which would normally be in the other possession. So yeah, definitely don't give out the codes.
don't give out the codes. Verizon, all of these companies, they have your data. They don't need those codes. If anybody asks you for that and you're suspicious, hang up the phone, call Verizon yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything immediately, right?
Or
a lot of
people
get these
companies.
emails and these links. If you even suspect, stop. Take a look at it again later. When you have a little bit more time and attention. Nothing is going to require you to react that fast.
No,
and that's where these mistakes happen, and everybody makes them. It happens,
right?
But it happens in those split-second decisions. Half the time when you make it, you already knew. I shouldn't have clicked that. It happens that fast, and it's because you're going too fast. You're not reading everything. I mean, we're in a busy world. We got a lot to do, and
I looked at that link from Layla, and if she had really just taken a second and looked at it, she would have seen that the link really wasn't to anything. It looked safe enough, but at the same time, if she had just really stopped and taken a look at what it was, she could have paused and questioned that decision,
or called that person, communicate another way, and say, "Hey, were you
texted that person?"
Be suspicious.
Yes, always have a healthy
and while you cleared up Layla's, honestly, it could have spread to a lot of other people, and maybe they're not as tech savvy.
Right.
So now those accounts are compromised, and they can go through. I mean, it's like a virus, I mean, we're all wearing a mask and COVID, and we're doing all of these things. It's the same kind of. You want to protect yourself to also protect others.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was my daughter got hacked.
It was a great story, and definitely enjoyed you sharing it. Anytime we have these quick one-offs to be able to jump in here and share real life events. His daughter got hacked. That is the title of the movie.
Well, on that terrible disappointment, we're off. I'm Brian.
And I'm John.
And thanks for coming back to Ask Tech Dad, where we talk about real life tech stuff with your family. And if you have any comments or any questions and would like to talk, or like for John and I to talk about a topic, please leave a message below. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you guys. And definitely give the feedback, the like, and the subscribe. We'll see you next time on Ask Tech Dad.